to be different, called to be changed. So God, make us different, make us change so we can shine in the darkest places. Shine so they can see your face. Shine and experience your amazing grace. So let us shine.
So this morning I wanted to talk about waiting. Waiting is something that's been on my mind a little bit over the last, a few weeks, but over the last 18 months especially. Waiting. We're waiting for all this COVID stuff to finally be done with. Bigger than that, we've been waiting for God's kingdom. But I have a few things that recently, over the last 18 months especially, I've been, not 18 months. One over the last 3 months, the other one actually closer to 2 years. But before I get to either of those, I had another example of waiting. As most of you know, I took Scarlett and Isla down to Indiana to see Katie Beth. They stayed this week and they'll be traveling back tomorrow. And my plan was to leave after the church picnic, and I was going to stop in Beloit or Janesville, somewhere in southern Ohio. No, that's not right. Southern Wisconsin. There's just a slight difference between Ohio and Wisconsin. Just don't ask any residents. Lots of cows in both states. Anyway, plan to stop for the night, and I get to Beloit, and I missed the Janesville exit. There was so much road construction going on. I'm like, I'm not going to try to weave back in and out of here. So I stop in Beloit, and I stop at 5 different hotels, and they have no vacancies. Like, what's going on? So I'm irritated, and I'm driving around, and there's construction there too. And so I drive probably, if I calculated right, about 6 miles out of my way, driving down this road, only to find I have to now come all the way back around. I was not in a very good mood. I just wanted to get someplace to sleep for the night. So I stopped at 2 other exits. Neither one had rooms available. I'm like, what on earth is going on? The one time I don't make a hotel reservation, I don't get a room. So I ended up getting to Katie Beth's house at 4 o'clock Eastern time Sunday morning, because it got to the point where I'm like, if I keep stopping, I'm only going to have like 4 hours in this hotel room, so it's not even worth stopping. So I went to Illinois for our ministers' conference leadership meeting that we had. And come to find out, one of the nuclear reactors was down in Byron, Illinois, and so there's no hotel rooms available within 30 miles. Like, that would have been nice to know ahead of time. So it was not a meltdown or anything, it was just down for service, is what my understanding was. Fingers crossed. But anyway, so I was just waiting to find a place to rest my head for the night. Sometimes when we're waiting, it's one of those things where we're waiting for something that we can actively change the outcome of, actively participate in the outcome. Other times, we're just sitting there twiddling our thumbs because there's absolutely nothing that we can do. Think about, going to get a blood test or something. There's really nothing you can do to speed up the results getting to you, I guess, unless you know somebody. But typically, you're just going to have to wait and wait. Sometimes, like in the situation with the hotel room, there's stuff that you're doing because you're waiting for a place or something to do, and you are figuring out where exactly that's going to be. So, first example of something that was an active type of waiting was our water situation. Most of you know that our well pump went out the day we were getting back from family camp. And so we were without running water in the house for several weeks. And our neighbors were nice enough to let us hook up to the back of their house and use their water. But I probably within a week or so had contacted a well company and like, yeah, we can get out there. And the day arrived when they were going to come out and fix the well. And then they're like, oh, can you send us a couple pictures of this well? Yeah. Get a call, got the notification, they're about 2 hours out from your house, and the guy's like, yeah, the crew that we're sending to your house only works on submersible pumps. You have a jet pump. That's a completely different crew. So I'm like, okay. And then he's like, you know what? With the age of your well, you might want to look at connecting the city water. And so I went through this several-week process of talking to the guy from Maple Grove, and the main guy was out of town. So I was talking to one of his subordinates. Like, okay, got me most of the answers I needed, and then there were other things they had to look into with assessments on the property, which I knew there were no assessments on the property, but there was apparently only one person in the offices for the city of Maple Grove that could check that, and she was out of town. So, waiting. Finally got a little lax, looking for a plumbing company that would put in a water main, called a couple different phone numbers, no answer, no voicemail. Hope is getting extremely frustrated. And it's one of those situations where we've done all that we can up until a point, it feels like, and now it's like, what happens next? So finally, we get to this point where like, there's no way that they're going to install a water main. We're not going to get on anybody's list. So I called, well, actually our neighbors got a nasty gram from the city of Maple Grove. If you're using too much water, it's a drought. Stop doing whatever you're doing. So call the well company I originally contacted, and they're like, yeah, we can get out there in late November. Hose is going to freeze before late November, most likely. And we don't want to burden our neighbors much longer. So then we had a well guy that came out and worked on the parsonage probably 3 or 4 years ago while Connie was living there. And Todd gave me his contact information, and so Thursday late morning I sent him a message, hey, we need our jet well pump fixed. Is this something you could do? Texted me later that night, said, I can be out there tomorrow. Like, great. So he came out. So as of about 3 o'clock Friday, we had our well pump running. Actually, I guess it was slightly later than that, but close enough. So that was great. This thing that we had been waiting to get resolved finally got resolved. Now, the other thing that I've been waiting for is something that I had absolutely no control over. 2 years ago, October of 2019, Eagles tickets went on sale. And so I was waiting, I was working, I'm like, all right, at 10 o'clock when they go on sale, I'm getting on, I'm buying my tickets. And so I did. Scheduled for April 3rd, 2020. Well, then what happens in March? Everything gets shut down. Concert gets postponed to October. Absolutely nothing I can do. I can't call up the band and say, hey, you should come anyway. Although, I might have been tempted at one point. And so waiting, finally, we're getting close. I'm like, I haven't checked on any of these details for a while. I need to check and see what the arena's policy is for, masks and vaccines and whatnot, and go to Discover 2 weeks beforehand or so. Oh, you need to have a negative test before you come in. Okay. Well, we didn't book one right away, a test. And so about a week before the concert, Hope is looking, and okay, I found a CVS in St. Cloud where we can go and get tested at 3:30 and 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Not the most convenient to drive all the way out to St. Cloud and then drive all the way back to St. Paul. Could have done it, didn't want to do it, would have been tight. So we found a place in Brooklyn Park where we were able to get in. Got negative tests, uploaded the test, they said, you're good to go. So finally, after essentially 2 years of waiting, not the 20 years that I've actually been waiting to see the Eagles live, I was able to go to the concert Friday night. And it just so happens that both of these things wrapped up and concluded on the same day. So I'm like, I guess that's a sign that that's my sermon topic this morning, waiting. So I want to take a few minutes and just look at some verses and maybe put a few things together. But I was thinking, I've been waiting for these things that to me they're important, but they're not like essential. I mean, it's not convenient, it's not good to not have running water in your house, but it's not like we're going to die because of it. It's not like Well, some people might feel that way. But people live for thousands of years without running water. It's fine. Pope didn't like that argument. So anyway, there are things, though, that we wait for. We're waiting for God to send Jesus back. We're like, I don't have a watch on, but we've been waiting 2,000 years. Come on, it's about time. So think about that. In light of that idea of waiting and waiting for God's kingdom, you can get frustrated if you're like, I'm sick of everything that's going on in the world. I'm ready for this to be over. I'm ready for the promises God made to be fulfilled. What do we do with that? We don't like waiting. We're in a society, we're in a culture, even a world that we're not satisfied if we have to wait. It was frustrating this morning. They weren't right on time at Starbucks when I needed my coffee at 5 a.m. Come on, I got 2 cars waiting in front of me. I'm getting frustrated, but I'm waiting. Well, the person in front of me paid for my stuff, so I guess that waiting was worth it. But we wait, and we wait, and we look to God for answers. We look to God for instruction, hopefully. But sometimes we get impatient. In Sunday school this morning, we were going through the book of Hebrews, and we talked a little bit about the Israelites. They were pretty impatient. You ever heard the old adage, good things come to those who wait? Is that a biblical sentiment? Well, we'll see here. First, we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. Now, this doesn't directly refer to waiting. However, I think it does put us in a place where we can wait if we take heed to this. Isaiah 40:31 says, "But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength." Those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not grow faint. So we get frustrated because we're waiting. We want Jesus to come back because our world is frustrating. We see evil things happening all around us, and there's nothing we can tangibly do about it. Or is there? Those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. So if we trust God's plan, we trust that God knows what He's doing, we trust that He's going to fulfill the promises that He made, that gives us a foundation where we can be strengthened and renewed. But when we don't trust God, that strength is going to be sapped. We'll be going it alone. And we will grow tired and weary. So we need to trust in the Lord. Romans 12:12 says, "Rejoice in hope, be patient in affliction, be persistent in prayer." When you're impatient, is that what you want to hear? Be patient in affliction? Come on. But there's wisdom in that. We need to rejoice. Rejoice in the hope that we have. Hope that is firmly planted in the trust that we have that God is going to do what He said He's going to do. And as we're being patient in affliction, we need to be persistent in prayer. Just sitting back and, okay, I'm just going to wait. Not an option. If there's nothing tangible that we can do, physically, what we can do is be persistent in prayer. So first, we trust. Second, we're patient and yet persistent. On the surface, it might seem like those are kind of opposites, but we can do both. We can persist in one thing while being patient in another. Lamentations chapter 3, verse 25 says, "The Lord is good to those who wait for Him, to the person that seeks Him." The Lord is good to those who wait for Him. So as we're trusting, as we're being patient and persistent, we're told, those who seek and wait for Him, the Lord, Yahweh, will be good to them. Psalm 27:14 says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and courageous." Wait for the Lord. So you're like, how do I be strong? Wait for the Lord and be strong? Well, circle back up to Isaiah. Those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. So this isn't saying grab strength on your own, but if we think back to these other verses and these other things that have been said through God's Spirit, we're told, be strong. God is going to strengthen you. Micah 7:7 says, "But I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me." Use that as a mantra, something to reflect on each day. I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation, with confidence that my God will hear me. James 1:12 says, "A man who endures trials is blessed, because when he passes the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him." So this idea of enduring trials as we're waiting for Jesus to return, it's also a time of testing. Our faith is tested as we endure these trials. But those who endure to the end, who put their trust in God, will be strengthened by God and will be able to endure these trials. Psalm 130 verse 5 says, "I wait for Yahweh. I wait and put my hope in his word." And it's not in the Bible, but a singer once said, the waiting is the hardest part. That is right. We see these promises, we see these things that God said he's going to do, and the waiting is the hardest part. It's Tom Petty. Final verse we're going to look at this morning, and then we're going to sing it. Psalm 40, verses 1 through 3. It says, "I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry for help. He brought me up from a desolate pit, out of the muddy clay, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord." So we get this image here that by patience God will pick us up from the pit. Our feet are stuck in the mud, and he'll set us on a rock. But notice verse 3. When we go through this process of trusting and being patient and enduring these trials, it says verse 3, "He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord." So we see this cycle, and if we frame it this way in our minds, perhaps it will be helpful. Because in our cycle of life, and as we are living out, seeking God's kingdom and trusting God, whatever we go through, God can use that to be an example. And we see here, because of this new song that is in my mouth, because of what God has done, through my patient endurance, even through the desolation that I have experienced and being stuck in the mud, God puts a hymn of praise in my mouth. And as I sing that, and as I present that, as I walk forward in my life, others see what I went through. I can be an example. I can point others to God. And that makes the waiting worth it. And we're told elsewhere in Scripture that those who bring others to repentance are going to be tremendously blessed by our God. So think about that. Foundation first, we trust. We're going to be patient and persistent. We're waiting, yet seeking. We need to be strong, but our strength doesn't come from what we have, because we all have days where we're ready to just break down and punch the wall, kick the dog, drop the mic and walk away. But when we put our trust in the Lord, he will give us strength.
So let us shine.